we need people for quizzes. 85058 if you want to take part. But let's start with Changing Rooms. At its peak, watched by 11 million people. So it was a do-it-yourself home improvement show from 1996 to 2004 on the BBC. Here's Carol Smiley setting out the premise.
Hello and welcome to Changing Rooms. This week we're in Chesham in Buckinghamshire, ready for another onslaught of drilling, decorating and design with two more teams of enthusiastic DIYers who are prepared to entrust their homes to one another.
Yeah, exactly that. And on our episode tonight, 28th of April 2002, Carol's earning her money at the end of the programme because one couple really are not happy with the way the other couple have decorated their new living room.
You're not sure?
No, not sure.
What would you change then?
The fireplace.
Back to the way it
I
was?
want my fireplace back.
Okay. Not like it? No. Any of it? No. Oh, no. Oh, no. It's changeable back. Your fireplace is just outside. It lifts off. You know us. Nothing's too permanent. They were the best episodes, weren't they?
She says, we've just sledgehammered your fireplace for filling for the garden. Al, talk us through it.
Well, telly's starting to change round about the turn of the century. You know, it's not threatened by the internet yet, but ratings are starting to droop for quite a lot of things. And the people who are making television, they're starting to believe that viewers don't particularly want to be informed or educated or even entertained. That the buzzword at the minute is water cooler moments, you know, usually involving members of the public. And yeah, Changing Rooms is a prime example of that. I mean, this is the 11th series already. And, the premise is simple. Two sets of neighbours swap homes for a bit, redecorate a room with the help of an interior decorator and Andy Kane, the odd job man known as Andy. On the surface, it's a DIY show with a competitive element, you know, but a bit like Ground Force. I can't remember if Ground Force came first, but in actual fact, it's a really good chance for the audience to gawp at what people have done to their houses. And, you know, it's got to be said, there's a proper Reader's Wives vibe to Changing Room. It's like, oh my God, look at the state of their curtains.
Well, so I've been speaking to the creators. So, because we're so used to it, we take it for granted. And many other shows have grown up in its image. So we just think, well, it's one of many. But it really was a game changer. So this is fascinating because this is a good insight into how TV programmes come about, something that's always interested me. So here's the woman who created the format for Changing Rooms, Anne Booth Clibborn. So I began by asking her what she was doing in TV when she came up with the idea.
I was a television assistant producer at the time. So I'd been working in television for about 4 years, and I'd worked on a lot of lifestyle shows, but studio shows for GMTV and some health things for BBC Two. And I'd done quite a lot at Basil already. So I'd worked on quite a lot of telly, but quite a lot of studio stuff. And I was desperate to do something that was in the evening, because all of my stuff was going out in the day.
Yeah, because that's the prime spot, yeah?
Yes, I wanted to get after 5 o'clock, you know, I was ambitious. And I'd worked on Esther's chat show, Esther Ranson's chat show.
Yes.
And realised that studio shows were really not my thing. Found them, didn't work for me. So, and then I got this opportunity to go back to my old company, Basil, because they had a short development contract for this show that they'd had a brief for from the BBC. So this show, the BBC had asked for a game show, a bit like Ready, Steady, Cook, but for interiors.
Right.
So they'd seen what Basil did with Ready, Steady, Cook, which was to make an information show, essentially into an entertainment show, for a fraction of the price that anybody was making telly for at that time. So that's what they thought they were going to get, a studio-based design show.
So it was what's the word? A consultation process. You weren't guaranteed to win with your idea. You were one of many people chucking in ideas to the BBC. Is that right?
Well, this was glorious 1995, where my boss was the only person that was asked to develop an idea.
Oh, okay, right.
But he had produced Ready, Steady, Cook, you see, so they wanted the same magic.
Go on then. Where did the magic occur in your brain then? Where did you suddenly think, hang on, I'm going to change the format here?
This was I think it's a really important development story, because something very brave came out of a set of steps It was nobody's one big idea.
Right.
But I moved it into real homes. I was only 27 when I got this job. I'd never done any decorating. I went to watch some decorating. It was totally dull. I thought, nobody is going to watch a game show about this. We've got to get something where you actually do get a room finished at the end.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's going to watch rag rolling just for fun. So I'd moved it conceptually into 2 empty houses. And this was called 4 White Walls. And it was 2 houses next to each other and teams decorating a room each week. And that is what my boss and I went to the BBC to pitch.
Right.
So we got on the tube at Tottenham Court Road. I hadn't seen him for days. You know, he just left me on my own. And I had to come clean and say, and Tony, you know what this feels like, that I had not got the answer.
Yeah.
The end of this show did not work because who cares what the judges thought, and who were the judges anyway? You know, was it Terence Conran? Was it Neighbours? You know, I was like, nobody will care about the end of this show. Yeah. And so at this moment on the tube, Baz had this absolute genius moment of saying, Anne, this is all about taste, and the only people that can judge it are the people who have to live in it. So this has to be real people's homes.
Right. Hang on. So the pitch was on the move then. So the pitch changed on the tube.
Yes. Then we got to the BBC and we met my very practical exec producer, who was my immediate boss, who went, if we're going to do this for the cost that we need to do it for, they've got to be neighbours. So, and I'd already said you can't let people do their own homes because it'd be deathly dull. So we knew that they'd be inviting other people's into their home.
Yeah.
But she said they've got to be next door because we can't afford, 2 crews.
Yes. Yes.
So it was neighbours. And by then I knew enough. I'd spent 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, researching interior design DIY. I knew there were these things called interior designers. I knew that they would do something much more interesting. And I'd also found out that they couldn't do that many practical things and you needed a carpenter. So I said on the tube, I think we need a designer in each house, but we could share a carpenter. And that was the pitch.
Right. And so it's funny, I mean, back in the day, my listeners will be groaning now because I tell this anecdote a lot, but I presented the first series of Traitor. And so when I was at the Beeb rehearsing it all, I talked to an executive and they said, oh, you can't tell anyone, but the next big thing's going to be, and it was ballroom dancing. So they were planning strictly. So what? Oh, yeah. So I felt I had a little moment of being in TV history then. You were about to walk into the BBC and in its own way change TV.
Well, thank you for saying so. I mean, I have to say it took me a lot of years to realise, because I was buried in making them rather than really experience the impact. But it did change telly. And partly, I'll tell you a bit of a secret about me, Tony. I never had a telly as a child or even a teenager.
That's weird. I always felt that was weird when I was a kid, people who didn't have tellies.
Yeah, I was one of those weird kids. My parents would let us have one. So I came with a very clean slate as to what was acceptable on telly or had been done before or who that hadn't been done before.
You've just invented a sitcom because you could have constantly gone to the BBC inventing programmes that were already on.
Yeah.
You'd never seen.
My boss, so we pitched the pilot and they said yes.
Right. There and then. Give me the drama moment.
Then.
Did they say, yes, we love it?
They did. They said, we love it.
Right.
They really believed in Baz, quite rightly, because he just had like the absolute sort of
Midas touch.
Ability to get the broad vision at the time. So they said yes straight away. So I was like, this is like I am so like pumped now. This is the moment I've been waiting for. It's a show that I want to make. And Baz was thinking, what the F have I just had commissioned? I have no idea how to make this. Yeah. This is a complete nightmare. But he didn't say that. He told me that 20 years later.
Right.
He said to me, Anne, you can make the pilot.
Well, at which point, either you panicked and fell down to the floor, or you thought, this is my time of my life?
Yeah, I thought, obviously, I didn't know. I thought it seems like a brilliant idea. I have no idea of what's coming. And, I was absolutely thrilled to get the job and super excited. And, it really was my baby that I then carried right through to delivery.
And who was in the pilot then when it came to casting, for example?
Yeah, so the casting was very interesting because we started to meet interior designers even at that sort of pre-pitch stage. And I found out very quickly that interior designers in 1995 could not do anything. Somebody came in and hung a blind for them. Somebody came in and did their effects. And I was, oh my God, this is not going to work. We can't have multiple people. So I changed tack and started to interview people who had publishing deals, who did craft books. And through that, I met Linda Barker, who had a lot of craft books to her name at that point. She walked in, I was like, oh my word, she's absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Why have I never seen a picture of this woman on any of her books? And then, let's say 20 people down the line, an agent got in touch with me saying, he's not on my books, but his wife's on my books. I know this guy. He paints and designs theatre scenery. I think he'd be really good. And that was Lawrence.
Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen.
Yes. So they were both in the pilot.
How did it feel to be the kingmaker? Because maybe they didn't realise it at the time, but you were going to make them household names.
Yes, and I didn't know what it was like to be on the other end of that, really. I was very protective of them all and also tried to keep it real, which, they were never trouble while I was there because I gave them all their jobs. Over the years, we all changed, and it takes some people some time to handle fame, and that was sort of that became more tricky. Let's say 2 years down the line, when we're getting a lot of they were getting a lot of pressure, but I only understood it really at the point where the BBC made a making of changing rooms, and that was sold to every single airline all over the world. And it was my show that they followed. And then, so for a whole 12 months, the only thing that anybody talked to me about was myself. Oh, I've just seen you in this film. Oh my God, I was on a plane and I saw you. And it gives you a weird, distorted experience of reality. So it was quite good for me to see what they were going through.
Yeah. Oh, right. So you have been on that side of it. Yeah. Well, I suppose there's a moment with TV people, isn't there? They're discovered, and so they're very grateful for everything they're being given. And then a few years down the line, when they become stars, they almost. So I'm not saying anyone we've named tonight, but some people would imagine that they're bigger than the programme, I guess, and that's when things might get a bit difficult.
Yeah, I've had really good relationships with all of them because we've all known each other for such a long time. But I think it's very difficult to stay like a normal human being when you've been talent for a long time. I think they've all done it in the fullness of time, but we all have our funny moments. Me and Lawrence used to go out every year for dinner, on the anniversary of the pilot, and Lawrence would arrange it, and he'd get in touch and he'd say, we need to get together to recognise what this means for both of us in our careers, which, I was very young and dashing about at that point. I was 27 and he was 32, so he was the old wise one.
I love Lawrence. I've just been watching him in something else fairly recently, and he lights up the screen. He's so watchable. I think he's great. How did it feel then to create this programme that everyone was talking about? I mean, the reaction of the homeowners when they walked in used to make the national newspapers the next day. It was bonkers.
It was absolutely huge, and it had a huge reach. That first show that I made for BBC One, so there was 2 on BBC Two, and then it moved to BBC One. Generally speaking, there's the numbers of viewers were huge, but there was hardly any channels. But in terms of share, the amount of people actually watching your show compared to the rest of the people in the UK, in that BBC One series, almost half of people watching telly in the UK were watching Changing Rooms at the point it went out on telly. So.
It was accessible. I don't know. What do I know? But for me, it was accessible and aspirational as well. People were thinking, could I do that to my house? What would I feel if someone did that to my house? It probably got conversations with neighbours going.
And I hope, yes, I think so. And I hope it had, I think it had a really lovely, warm atmosphere, so I'm a story coach now, and I talk a lot about the sort of world that you create when you create a story. And I think, I know that Changing Rooms was watched by entire families because there was these lovely relationships that were all real, and and we kept everybody in a very safe space. And so the carpenter Andy, we'd have all these banter with the designers. I think it was very special, and because I was young and maternal and bossy in equal measures, or let's say, protective.
Yeah.
I think I really sort of kept a family atmosphere. We had Carol Smiley at the superstar end. We had Andy Kane, who was a carpenter who thought he was auditioning to come to be the set carpenter when he came for his screen test. It was a whole range of personalities, and we gave people a lovely world to be in.
Yeah.
And how it felt, I was super, super proud. I loved that show, and I gave my health and my life to that show for 2 years. They were very difficult shows to make.
Well, you created a family that many people would have wanted to invite to their house, I think, which is a sign that it was a winner. And when it moved to BBC One, you must have thought, wow, this is it, because that's a seal of approval as well. So, look, how did it change the genre then? Because it invented kind of this reality game show, did it?
Yes, and I don't think I saw how different it was at the time because I wasn't watching as much telly as I should have done. But what it did, I think, was put storytelling into the heart of those features shows and putting real people into those shows and and really sort of release this whole unfortunate genre of reality television where anybody now might be on television, and you put them into a light format. So Race Across the World, for example, would not have happened in 1995. And I definitely didn't invent that format, but it's that sense of starting to put real people into these frameworks of a story, and let's see what happens.
And that, in its wider sense, Anne, has completely changed show business, hasn't it? Because some established showbiz stars would say not for the good, because they say, well, we've learned to trade and we can do this, and then suddenly someone comes in off the street, da-da-da. But loads of TV stars now have come the reality route, haven't they?
Yes, and it's sort of it's a goal to be famous.
Yeah.
And people think, okay, yeah, well, that's easy. All I need to do is get my face on something and I'll be famous. It is still you do still need very special qualities. It's not everybody can come through that route and be famous, obviously. I think I think I'm very comfortable in the learning space. So all the shows I make are lifestyle. You come out having learned about interiors or nutrition or gardening. And so I think experts have one foot on the ground, and then they're a personality. But I'm not that comfortable with shows which are just about people.
No, I get that. What's the next big idea then? Is there anything left to explore with experts?
Well, do you know what
Carpeting?
I think
how specific can we be?
What we've lost is mischief. So, and Changing Rooms, it was mischievous. And now, if you're going to get your room done, it's all about, like, have you got a sob story? Did something awful happen? Well, now you might get it decorated.
Yeah.
I feel like we could return to more mischief in a genre. I couldn't tell you which genre.
Well, look, Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen has actually become a byword, hasn't he? Somebody will walk into a room and go, very Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen. So that's interesting. And last question, when you first made the programme and it was on telly, did you video it and freeze frame it with your name in the credits to stare at it just for a little bit?
No, I didn't. Oh. But what I did do was make sure that my name was on a black sheet hanging. So they were all over Actuality. I'd film a black sheet on a washing line, and then that's the shot I would put my name over.
Brilliant.
And also I doubled the length of my name. I started as Anne Hill when I started that show, and now I'm Anne Booth Clibborn, which takes up the entire screen.
So your life's mapped out there then. Your changes, like Courtney Cox in Friends. Yeah, she's changed. Well, look, Anne, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I love these little insights. Well, more than little insights, major insights into TV. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, it's been really nice to reminisce. Thanks for talking to me. Al, you know, as a TV nut, I'm always interested. That's Anne Booth Clibborn who invented Changing Rooms. I had a go briefly trying to invent a TV show. It's very difficult to come up with something from scratch that hasn't been touched on before.
God, yeah, I can imagine. I haven't, and I wouldn't.
No.